like to call our District 228 regular school board meeting to order, please. Thank you. Can I get roll call?
Mrs. Gleason here, Mr. Johnson here, Mrs. Campworth, Mrs. List, Mrs. Stearns here, Mr. Whitcomb here, Mrs. Ressler.
Here, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the March 21st, 2023 regular and closed meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Ms. Gleason. Roll call, please.
Mr. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Stearns. Aye. Mrs. Ressler.
Aye. Can I get a motion to approve the April 11th, 2023 committee of the whole and closed meeting minutes?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Stearns, second by Mr. Whitcomb. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stearns. Aye. Mr. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Ressler.
Aye. Do we have any comments from the public? Any public comments? All right, if there are no public comments, we'll move on to our superintendent report.
Thank you, Mrs. Ressler. Item 4.1 is superintendent report. And just give the board a heads up that as we're entering the last month of school, we'll be fast and furious with the focus, obviously first and foremost on graduation. There's a lot of end of the year activities, senior honors nights, and then obviously graduation being the end point. Also want to throw a shout out to a Hillcrest program since they are our host tonight. Jason Thomas with 3 Seeds Mentoring. When you came in, you might notice there was an event in the cafeteria. He and Hillcrest have had a partnership for the last few years here. He provides college tours, college visits. They do a lot of unique experiences through his club and organization. And tonight is their end of the year event where the students who've decided on a college or a plan for the future get entered into a raffle. Got all kinds of giveaway and food, and just had a chance to catch up with him before the meeting today. Wanted to throw a nice shout out to him and his 3 Seeds mentoring group. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 4.2, our principal reports.
Hello, good evening. Just want to introduce our recommended candidate for the board for Dean of Students at Oak Forest High School, Michelle Pluhar's with us tonight. Just want to put a name with a face there, as you'll see her paperwork coming through. So she comes to us with a wealth of experience as both a social worker and a current dean. I want to give a shout out to our new Oak Forest alumni Facebook page. Mike Boniface started this back in October, and he set up this page and then turned it over to one of our teachers who's actually an alumni, Christina Blair. Dace was her maiden name. And at this point, it's been up since October, and it is 867 members strong. They post throwback photos on Throwback Thursday, and we've had a lot of great results out of that, including several different alumni gatherings. And so just want to especially give a plug because Jim Boswell and Aaron Collins might want to check out that Facebook page as they're both approaching their 20-year high school reunion at Oak Forest. So just wanted to highlight that for all of you. We had Jazz Night this past Saturday, and that was a big success. If you're looking for some more entertainment, we do have the spring musical coming up on April 20th and 29th at 7 o'clock, and then on Sunday the 30th at 2 o'clock. They are putting on Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. If you haven't seen that for a little while, that's certainly one of those soundtracks that gets stuck in your head. So certainly an enjoyable weekend that will be. I'm proud to announce that we have 4 Chick Evans scholars from Oak Forest High School from our senior class this year. That includes a full tuition, room and board for those 4 students: Madison Levsay, Catherine Everett, Christopher Smith, and Morgan Nielsen. Definitely, as Dr. Sikor mentioned, we have Senior Honors Night coming up. Just want to extend an invitation to all of you to attend that on May 10th at 7 o'clock. We will, of course, honor those scholars as well as many other scholarship recipients that night, and lots of our senior scholars. Speaking of graduation, everything coming up for seniors, on May 11th is our Senior Sunrise, And then we'll follow that with some graduation practice, and we're gonna continue that senior parade through the halls that has gotten reviews the last few years. And then a color run. I guess it's about time that the pink is finally coming off of my radio. It's time to do another color run, so looking forward to that. At Oak Forest High School, we also have a new, excuse me, pole vault record holder with our sophomore, Josh Fladszewski. And our Oak Forest baseball team won the Gulf Shore Classic down in Alabama over break. You have all seen our phenomenal state champion cheer team, and one of our students received another recognition from that. Colleen McMaster was named to the Illinois High School Cheerleading Coaches Organization All-State Cheer Team. And the last thing that I want to share with you is that we had the pleasure this week, those young ladies, and you all saw them at your last meeting over at Oak Forest. We had the Honorable Donna Miller come to Oak Forest High School and present each of the members of the cheer team with a resolution from the Board of Commissioners from Cook County. The Honorable Tony Preckwinkle signed that, and they read a resolution recognizing them and the program and all of the wonderful things that they were able to do. So that was just a nice little shout out. Wanted to share that with all of you, and thank you for all of your support for all of our different activities and programs that we hosted Oak Forest. So that's what's happening at Oak Forest. Thank you. We have Aaron.
Hi everyone. Jim, I guess we can't lie about how old we are anymore because the forum now knows. So thanks, Jane. It is a great Facebook page, by the way, and I'm on it and part of it. I just wanted to let you guys know that this week has been quite busy. It feels like it's already in the week. In the last 2 days, we have already had 6 students finish and finished early, so they're very excited to be participating in the graduation ceremonies that are coming up. The next few weeks for us are going to be pretty similar. Every day we have students that are finishing and kind of trying to get everything done before the final minute, but it's an exciting time to be over at Delta, so if you guys ever want to stop by, it's a cool time to be here with all of our kids as we get to say goodbye and congratulations before we see them again at the graduation ceremonies. So we've been busy over there. In addition, I've been working with Lisa and Matt Beesland from the Oak Forest campus, and I'm excited to announce that next year we're going to be bringing our TEP program over from the main campus to the Oak Forest Center. I've already kind of started to collaborate a little bit with Christina Botica, who's currently running it, to see about what kind of opportunities this is going to offer not only the students who are attending in the TEP program, but also how we can collaborate and have them add on to the Delta Academy staff and our student population with a few different ideas, talking about anything from opening up new stores for merchandise and seasonal crafts, as well as just helping out with the day-to-day routines that are built into our classrooms that our students are running in now. So be on the lookout for that. We have space. We're just going to start to get it up and running so we can push that out in August. Before I got here, very excited to see, as I was on Facebook, I noticed that our district logo on the Facebook page actually changed today, and it does include the Delta Drake. Means a lot to myself and my team. We had a little text kind of going before I came in here today. It's very exciting to see us being represented at the district level on social media platforms. So if our teachers are excited about it, I'm sure the kids are excited about it as well. We'll be talking about that when we get up and running again tomorrow. Dina Dobrovitz, I know I spoke last month about some of the field trips that she's been doing, and I told her how excited everyone was and how we're really enjoying that we have a connection with PAWS. She has now stepped up and has connected, so much so that she has adopted a site through the Forest Preserve of Cook County. As of today, it was approved that we have a site at Oak Forest Heritage Preserve West. It's a forest preserve here, and we have a Delta site there where we will be in charge of bringing students out minimally 8 times a year to go and clean up in a crew of upwards of 20 kids at a time. We're going to kind of work some of the kinks out of this to see how we can incorporate it into a pretty regular routine, and feeling like it's going to be a way for us not only to bridge back with the community, give these kids an opportunity to do some service learning, but also to provide them just with basic breaks from being in front of online curriculum and projects, get them out and about and kind of change up their day-to-day. So we're excited about pushing that out. We'll start that before we leave for summer. We'll do some summer hours and we'll pick that back up again in the fall. And then finally, I will mention to you guys next month's meeting too, but we are gonna have an end of the year picnic for our second year in a row. We did this last year with the students. We had former students come back from graduation to see us. The teachers provide all of the meals. We cook for all the kids. They come back. We had a karaoke session, so if anyone is interested in karaoke, and I'm just saying, we have that available. I will send out invites if you guys would like to join us. It will be obviously at South River Forest, but everyone is welcome.
Good evening, everyone from the Bremen Braves. Fast and furious, end of the school year. We've got a lot of things going on. April, I can't believe we're midway through the month and headed into May. Spring sports are in full swings. I want to give a shout out to Tom O'Shea, our athletic director at Bremen, who was trying to promote all of the amazing things that our kids are doing and get staff involved. Our staff want to go and see our kids, but I think it just took a little initiative where he put together great days to see the Braves that we've been sharing weekly in our bulletin, and it organizes for our staff kind of the best day to get the most bang for your buck. So for example, this week on Thursday, if you come by our place, you can see girls soccer at home versus Argo, tennis, boys water polo, baseball, JV, and softball. So every week there's kind of a day of the week where our staff community can come out and just kind of see a little bit of everything. So this has really gone over well. And we plan to continue this throughout the school year. So we'll make sure that we start sharing this with you guys. If you want to come by and catch a bunch of events on one night. District 228, our girls water polo, is currently ranked in the top 25 in the state, which is an awesome accomplishment. They won the Bradley Bourbon A tournament last week, and they really are getting into a good place going into the end of the season. Our spring play, unfortunately, all of our spring productions, I think, are scheduled the exact same time for all 4 schools, but Moana is going to be running on the 27th, 28th, and 29th at Bremen High School. We're really excited for that fun production. We have a student and staff charity soccer game coming up. We've notoriously done student staff basketball games, but one of our young ladies, Suzanne Cabreo, is organizing a charity soccer game. It's going to be during 8th period, and all of the proceeds are going to go towards the American Diabetes Association. So we're doing some other cool fundraising efforts, but we have one student who kind of spearheaded this entire effort, from ordering personalized jerseys to kind of getting the staff volunteers, her own teammates. It's really looking to be a fun event at our place on the 27th. And then culinary classes, things are heating up in our kitchen. We have had sandwich wars and pizza wars going on. Thursday of this week, I'll be eating pizza for breakfast because I volunteered to judge somebody's got to judge first period pizza wars, so we do those things. But the kids are getting really excited because, there's a champion from each class, and they're getting just really excited to show off their skills there. Finally, as we move into May, our senior honors night is May 10th at 7 p.m. Just like Ms. Dempsey talked about, we have senior sunrises and senior signings and senior prom, all of these fun events coming up for our seniors, and we're really looking forward to the month of May. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm from Tinley Park High School. Teresa sends her greetings. She had another commitment tonight, so she sent me. You're stuck with me. So just a few things from Tinley Park High School. As with everybody else, as you've heard already, tons of stuff going on here at the end of the year. A few exciting things that have just taken place. Last Thursday, we had a Ramadan dinner. Our Seekers Club and Salim Bakhtiri hosted a Ramadan dinner to kind of celebrate our diversity at Tinley Park High School, but also to kind of educate people that showed up. There were about 80 people that showed up to that. So that was we've never done that before, so a new event that was exciting and fun for our kids and our families. The Jazz Cafe was just last Sunday. Our Vince Aiello does an awesome job with our jazz band and always puts on a great performance. It's a great fundraiser for the band, as well as our music booster parents, which some of you have been involved in the past, do a great job hosting that event. We have 2 students, April 26th through the 30th, through BPA, who qualified for the national competition in broadcast news competition. That's Kyle Tabay and Gergis Ibrahim. They will be heading to Anaheim, California those days to compete in the national competition. So good luck to them and congratulations. Next Wednesday, we have the Taste of Tinley coming up Wednesday, April 26th. This is our 3rd installment of the Taste of Tinley. We have about 14 different groups that are hosting booths, tables, to showcase their culinary skills and kind of run it like a very mini Taste of Chicago. So we have about 260 people who RSVP'd to be there. That number always tends to go down on the night of the event, but hopefully we'll see a lot of those families come out to the event next Wednesday. You guys are all absolutely invited to come as well. If you'd like to host a table, let me know, and we can get you going on that too. We are hosting the District Mental Health Awareness Night for parents on May 2nd in the Audion at Tinley Park High School. So again, kind of an educational piece for parents to come in, and we have some professionals there who will be sharing some information as well as providing information on different resources that are available to families and parents as well. So, and then finally, as with everybody else, lots of senior events coming up, but just wanted to highlight for all of you is our May 4th is our Senior Honors Night, and that will be held at 6:30 p.m. in the main gym at Tinley. So you're all welcome to attend that as well. All right, thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. This past weekend, we had two students, Demila Fluker and Nyla Walls, who took first place at the FCCLA state competition down in Springfield. They competed in the preschool lesson plan category and taught students a circus-themed lesson on numbers and animals. Also, the mayor of Hazel Crest, Mayor Alsbury, recently, about 3 weeks ago, contacted me that he wanted to spread some positivity around the village of Hazel Crest. So with the help of Mrs. DeForty, we got some students to submit positive messages, mottos, things like that. And our winner was honored by the mayor. Mayor came up, presented her with a t-shirt, a little certificate, and things like that. And her picture and her motto is being displayed all over Hazel Crest right now on all their video displays. Our Key Club recently raised over $500 for Muscular Dystrophy Association with the Shamrock fundraiser. On April 6th, we had Junior Impact Day here. Our college career counselor, Brandy Mathis, basically it's an event to get the juniors prepared for their senior year. So some college reps and some other companies came out and guided the students through sort of a strategic plan on how to tackle their senior year month by month, step by step, so that they have a good plan going into their final year of high school. Back on April 3rd, all the district students were eligible and applied for what was the Ron Edmonds Scholarship with the help of Dr. Sikora and Tiffany Taylor through the, I gotta look at this, Superintendent's Commission for the Study of Demographics and Diversity. I got that right? Okay. We had 6 students awarded the scholarships. They were honored at the banquet, and then each of the other district schools also had a few recipients of the scholarships as well. Sunji Cobb, Tiara Henderson, Amaria Jackson, Ariana McKenney, Cameron Thomas, and Khalees Wright were the honorees. It was a great event. On Wednesday of this week, Wednesday? Is it Wednesday or Thursday? Tomorrow, sorry, I had it wrong. On Wednesday of this week, from 5 to 7, us and here at Hillcrest and at Oak Forest, we're hosting Thursday. My apologies. I wrote Wednesday down and I made me question that. STEM night. So high school students doing different labs. It's open to families and things like that. So the students will be running the labs so that the parents and kids and things like that can see. And then we have Crosstown Exotics, which is a reptiles group that's going to come and bring a bunch of different types of reptiles here for the kids to see. Should be an interesting evening. And then on next Wednesday, I got to get my Wednesdays and Thursdays right. On next Wednesday, the 26th, is our Senior Honors Night here at Hillcrest starting at 6 o'clock. Our presentation tonight is going to be by Terry Shrashoon, our PE supervisor, and Jen Winefka, our special ed coordinator. They're going to be talking about, well, actually, the advent of when we brought heart rate monitors into the district through the PE department, and now sort of a cross-curricular collaboration between the PE department and our special ed department with our core program here at Hillcrest. Thank you.
Give us one moment to get everything set up for you guys. Again, I'm Jen Winefka, thanks Ron, and that's Terry. If you'd like to move so you can see the presentation, feel free to do so.
Yeah, oh no.
Closer. There you go.
So first of all, I wanted to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity to take about 15 minutes tonight to share a couple of the things that Jen and I have been working on independently, and then the one collaborative project we decided to venture out on in August. So we are going to talk about three things in our presentation. One is the integration of heart rate monitors in our phys ed curriculum. One is how we support students throughout the day, which is the special ed portion of that, and then our collaborative effort. So in 1920, we started to get carts and started to get heart rate monitors, and this is just an example of one teaching station, okay? There's 28 monitors in a teaching station. Every teacher has a cart. They're mobile. I wasn't sure how that particularly would go over, but the teachers love them. They take their carts everywhere. So we started to get our fleet of carts. We now have 28 carts. Every teacher in every building has their own cart. As you know, with COVID, we were 100% remote, so we kind of had a little dip in our training and a little dip in our usage because we didn't have students on campus. But last year was the first year we really began to integrate the monitors and do the training that we needed to do so our teachers could gain that confidence that they needed to use these with fidelity on a weekly basis. We utilized SIP days and institute days for training. We had a rep come out from the company and do an all-day training for my staff, and just to get them comfortable with the platform. It's web-based, so all of the data is stored in the cloud, and it's real easy to access. They can see how their kids have done and performed either during that particular lesson or over time. In order to help with the goal of integrating watches and integrating the monitors, my goal was just wanted to get the teachers to use them once a week. We weren't as concerned about the kids knowing all the bells and whistles yet. We know this is a 3 or 4 year implementation process, and so our goal was just so the teachers could gain that confidence and comfortability of the process of getting the watches on the kids, teaching them how to scan in, how to scan out, that kind of thing. And then troubleshoot, because not always do you get the watch at the right location on the wrist for it to pick up that heart rate, right? So one of the fun things that I did, and I don't know if the teachers felt it was fun, I thought it was fun, did contests where we did building-based contests, and in November of last year, Hillcrest won that contest, and that was where all the teachers, their combined metrics, basically the group that had the best percentage of students using the monitors during the designated time period, they were the winners. And then in March, I did another repeat of that contest, and at that point, Tinley won that repeat. And this is a competitive group. So it's not, most of my teachers are former athletes, so if there's a contest to be had, somebody's gonna win. Hopefully there's no bloodshed along the way. This year, we've got into the 3rd year of implementation. We've ramped up a little bit what the expectations are. The goal is still for students to wear the monitors once a week. We're now using some of the data that comes out of the monitors and out of the website to teach students about their heart rate and that physiological side of what it looks like and what it feels like when your heart rate starts to elevate and other things like that. So again, we did 2 contests. This time we've added a second metric to the contest, and that is the percentage of time the students are actually in their training zone. And that, for a quick definition, the training zone is that percentage between 60 and 70% of their maximum heart rate. So we want an elevated heart rate, but we don't want it too high, right? Because that creates other problems, okay? So here are just a couple pictures. What Jen showed were the watches, but these are what this is a picture of, obviously, a Hillcrest class using the watches. These watches and the utilization of the technology is aligned with state goal in phys ed, physical health and development, and it's also aligned with an SEL goal that it helps students understand what's happening in their system and how to regulate and control some of their emotions and that physiological response. This is basically a teaching tool that we use. The company provides a big poster for us that teaches the kids and helps the teachers illustrate what the blue zone is, which is a resting heart rate. It's probably where all of you are right now. It's not where Jen is.
I'm red.
Because her watch is already beeping back here saying that her heart rate's up. So if you're in the blue zone, you're probably doing something relatively sedentary. You might be walking, and your emotions that are connected to that are nothing heightened, is the best way to put it. If you're in the yellow zone, you now started to exercise, your heart rate is increased. You're not doing anything real intense, but you are doing something. You might have a 15-minute walk under your belt. You might be doing some stairs at your house. If you have the watch on, you would start to see your heart rate elevate. And if you are doing something really vigorous, then obviously you're in the red zone. The watches, as you can see, there's a little colored circle around the watch, around that number. The number in the middle is the heart rate. The number, or the color on the watch, shows the student where they are. It's that visual indicator of, I'm in the yellow zone, this is good, this is where I need to be. I'm in the red zone, I need to modify, I need to walk, because my own heart rate's too high. Or if I'm in blue, I need to pick it up, okay? So pretty simple and quick visual cue for the students to know where they are and whether their watch is working properly or whether they're meeting the teacher's expectations. So this is the cool thing about this particular company and this particular set. And I've worked with heart rate monitors for over 20 years, starting with Polar back in the 90s. And there wasn't a web-based platform for anything at that point, right? So we've come a long way with technology. The teachers couldn't get this kind of data from the monitor back in the 90s. Now we can see. This is actually an example of a 30-minute session that a student wore. I just grabbed it out of the system, and you can see for about the first 9 minutes, the student was in the blue zone, so they're warming up. Then they get into activity, and for the most part, they stay exactly where the teacher would like them to be, which is in the yellow zone, which is in that moderate to almost vigorous activity. There's brush up against the red there. So this is the neat thing about this system. As soon as a teacher saves this data, the students get this graph, or their graph with their unique data, sent to their email. They get it. We can also have the option to send it to parents. We can select either one email address or two. The parents can get it. The goal is to ultimately integrate that parent connection, that family connection, with what we're doing during the day.
So here's where I come in, and I'm new to District 228 this year, but Terry reached out to me at the beginning of the year and said, hey, we're doing this heart rate program with our students in PE classes. Do you think that the students in our behavior support programs would benefit from something like this? So I'm going to quickly run through some of the different behavior support programs we have available to students in District 228. So we have one of these programs in each of our buildings. At Tinley Park we have Pride, at Hillcrest we have SOAR, at Oak Forest Roar, and Bremen PALS. These behavior support programs are open to both general education and special education students who have trouble regulating their internalizing and externalizing emotions. To support those students, sorry, Sherry, I'm going to talk a little more. To support those students, the students have a period built into their day that replaces their study hall. During this period, they would go to the Pride, SOAR, or ROAR, or PALS room, check in with their case manager, talk about their day. In addition to that, they can visit that room, either teacher prompted or student prompted, throughout the day when they need support. We have social workers on staff that support them, and they teach them different strategies and skills to be successful in regulating those emotions throughout the day. Then we have 2 more intensive programs, CORE at Hillcrest and Bridges at Oak Forest. These programs are for special education students only, and to provide support to those students who have social, emotional, and behavioral needs that are extensive, that prevent them from being successful in a general education environment. So for these students, again, we have social worker and a psych on staff, and they're in a small environment throughout the day where they can get direct instruction on how to regulate their emotions and get their behavioral needs met along with their academic needs met. So our goal this year was to teach our students in our CORE and our Bridges program how to read and analyze their personal heart rate data, not only in relation to physical activity, but how their emotions impact their heart rate. So you can't see my watch right now, but I hate presenting, which is funny with what my job is. So my watch is alerting me like, you need to sit down, take a breath. But we're hoping to use that with our students and teach them, okay, they don't realize how their emotions are physically impacting their person. And so that's where that emotional regulation piece comes in, and this is a nice visual tool for them. Now obviously mine is an Apple Watch and not one of the heart rate monitors we use with the kids. It's a nice visual tool to say, hey, your watch face is red. What are you feeling right now? What can you do to bring yourself back down to a yellow or blue zone? So we wanted to take apart that graphic you saw earlier and really focus on the physiological response that you have to your emotions. So if you look at the blue zone, like Shu pointed out earlier, you could be tired, calm, happy, sad. These are very calm emotions. You're not really doing a whole lot. Yellow zone, you're getting a little excited. Maybe you're playing a game with your family. Maybe you're having an exciting conversation with your friend. Maybe you're watching something on social media, right? Red zone, you're getting into a fight. You are super heated, you're super angry about something is frustrating you, something is upsetting you. Maybe you're having a really anxious moment. Maybe you're terrified, right? And so we're teaching the students with the support of our staff and our behavior support programs how their emotions directly impact their physical being through the use of the heart rate monitors. So first semester, our goal for these students was to wear them once a week in PE, their BSP fitness program, and then also to talk with our social workers and our teachers within our program on the different coping strategies that exist for them to bring them back to a calmer emotional state. And in order to really help them process through this, we also have them take time out of their English course within their behavior support program to write a reflection on what that physical activity they did in PE, how that impacted their heart rate. Did they stay in the yellow zone? Did they spike to the red zone? If they were blue the entire time, what activity could you try next time, right? That might get you back up into that zone that you want to be in. And then second semester, we really focused on extending the time the students wore them. So not just in their fitness class, maybe in an academic course, maybe during an unstructured time like lunch. And then to utilize that data to see what happened during that time. Was I pretty even-keeled? Did I stay in the yellow zone? Was I super calm, stayed in the blue zone? Or did something happen that caused my heart rate to spike? And if it did, how do we process through that? How did that impact me?
So the cool thing about extending the time from the one period, of wearing the watches in just phys ed to 2 periods or 3 periods is the teachers started to recognize when kids were a little bit unstructured and deregulated, and they're like, so we tried to say, okay, let's keep the watches on after they're in PE to make it 2 consecutive periods that way, or put them on the kids 1 hour sooner. So for example, here at Hillcrest, the kids have PE 7th hour. They have lunch 6th. So we went from an unstructured time, which could give us some unique data, to the structured phys ed time, which always gives us some unique data. And we tried to just do different things like that. But this semester, I want to say it was February or March, the teacher said, hey, can we put the watches on them at 8 o'clock in the morning? Because when they come in the morning, we have a hard time really getting them focused and locked into what we need them to do. They're really a little bit unregulated, and so we would like to see this and maybe use the data as a teaching tool, right? So the teachers were awesome with wanting to try different things and taking initiative to move forward when they knew the students were ready to move forward.
So throughout this process, we utilized our psychologists and our social workers embedded in the program to teach our students different coping and self-regulation strategies. So this is not an all-encompassing list, but these are some of the more common tools that our students choose to use. And so our hope through second semester and by the end of this year is for students to have a little toolbox of the coping strategies that work for them. Not all of these are going to work for every single one, right? So maybe the 5 senses mindfulness will work for me, where I go through, okay, what can I see, what can I hear, what can I listen to, right? That takes my focus off of whatever situation I'm in. Or maybe for Terry, it's journaling, right? Maybe she can refocus and center herself. She's saying no by writing a journal entry. That wouldn't work for me either. I'm more of a listen to music, draw, or color person, right? If I'm having a stressful day, I'd like to color in a coloring book. I know it's childish, but it's what calms me down. So helping our students identify not only the situations that cause their heart rate to increase and what impact that has, but then providing them with the tools to take themselves back to that calmer state. And so we're hoping by the end of this year that some of our students, well, we want all of our students, but at least some of our students will be able to independently access the tools in their toolbox to take themselves out of some of those more stressful situations, or at least refocus their minds in those situations so they don't do something later on that negatively impacts them. So this is the really cool part. So these are actual student graphs from students at Hillcrest. We have them for our students at Oak Forest too, but considering where we're presenting, we thought we'd focus on our students here at Hillcrest. So this is an interesting situation. This student, if you look at this graph, you would think, wow, they're doing something super intense. Something really intense happened during lunch. Something even more intense started off in the passing period and then kind of led into PE. Actually, this is a student who was sitting at their desk during lunch, independently looking at something, independently working. This is a student who struggles with their mental health, experiences social anxiety, and so on this particular day, this student was feeling high stress from whatever happened within their day. But this was a student who was just sitting alone at their desk. So looking at that right away, we're like, oh my goodness, what happened? And when reaching out to the teacher, they were like, the student was just having a rough day. They were sitting at their desk during lunch at this time, and this is all the different ways their heart rate increased and decreased during that time.
And here's the funny thing, the data in between the 2 vertical red lines, that was the time it took them to walk from the classroom down to PE. So here's where, even though she didn't intend for the exercise to kind of help regulate, she got up and started walking, and it was a calming 3 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever as she moved down the hall. And then the physical activity looks pretty normal to what you would expect for whatever the class was doing at that time.
This is one of my favorite stories from this year. As you can see, for the most part, this student remained in the blue zone for almost the entire time they wore the watch, which was again in lunch and PE. However, this student during lunch, I should have stated our students in our core program stay within our program for lunch here at Hillcrest. But this student needed a utensil, so they left the classroom with permission to go get a utensil from the cafeteria, had somewhat of a verbal altercation with a staff member about getting the fork, and immediately came back to the core classroom and said, I want to see my data. I want to see what happened during that period of time because I knew my heart rate went up. Now, while they didn't spike to the red zone, they definitely spiked into the yellow zone, and then processed with the staff member in the room throughout that, what happened. And then you can see throughout the rest of the time they wore the watch, they really didn't spike until almost the very end of PE. But we just thought it was a really cool story to tell because the student immediately asked the teacher to see their data. I want to see what happened to me during this time, and then they processed the teacher through that as well. So this is a student who is very even keel, usually doesn't have a lot of outbursts, but is very attached to their cell phone, right? We all know young people and their cell phones, right? I'm attached to mine too, I have it up here. But this student, if you look at about the 9:05 time, had a verbal and behavioral outburst with the staff in the room in regards to giving up possession of the cell phone because it was impacting them in the classroom, what they were supposed to be doing. The student became very upset when the staff asked that student to put their cell phone away. And you can see the heart rate spiked immediately up to the red zone and then immediately dropped. They processed with the student throughout that situation. They talked with the student. And then subsequent to this interaction came up with a plan so that something like this wouldn't happen again. The student now puts their cell phone on their desk right when they walk in, and it goes into a pouch until the student has earned time through whatever they're doing throughout the day to get that cell phone back for little snippets of time. But you can see very quickly the student was able to process through with the staff member and calm back down, and then stayed pretty even the rest of the time they wore the watch. And this was the time where the student wore the watch at the beginning of the day, second and third period. So part of this was gathering student feedback from our students, both in our Bridges and our core program. We did that through those reflection pieces we asked the students to do. We also administered a mid-post survey, a pre-survey at the beginning of the year, a mid-post survey towards the end of first semester, and we'll be doing a post survey of the whole year in May. So we started off that survey with just their knowledge of their heart rate, how physical activity can impact their heart rate, and what they knew about different coping strategies. Our mid-year survey really focused more on the coping strategies and how their emotions impact their heart rate. And our end of the year survey will focus more on what individual strategies do they think they've identified to put in their toolbox, and do these strategies actually work for them, and can they implement them independently? So we asked Mr. Reed and Mr. Mays, our teacher and our social worker in our core program, to provide some feedback. They couldn't be here today, but these are the three things that stood out to us. Number one, they stated that their students learned that their emotional and mental state can have a physical impact on their body and their heart rate. Throughout wearing these, they've learned what heart rate is, how it can affect them, and how they can respond and make decisions in heated moments to kind of step back and bring their heart rate back down. Overall, this meant that they were connecting the techniques, the coping strategies that they're learning within our programs to real-life situations, how to handle stress and manage their emotions. Not every student is independent at this point, but at least they have some tools they've identified, and they're trying out different things in the safe environment of our core and our Bridges program that will work for them in the future. What questions do you have for us?
Is this eventually gonna be where they have access to these all day? To where they can maybe like
It's definitely something that we've talked about, for sure, because it would be very interesting for us as staff, but also for students, to be able to see that data and process with them in the variety of situations that they encounter throughout their day.
They can see right away, okay, I need to do something.
Exactly.
And it's a life lesson for when they.
Yeah, it's a right? It's that visual, oh my goodness, I'm in red. I need to step back and remove myself,
So
or I need
talking
to
about
breathe.
it means what?
So we're in plans for next year. We just haven't made any decisions yet.
Great information, really, really interesting. Great for our kids, thank you.
Well, have you noticed a decline in like incidents where we needed to escalate a response? Like less fights, less?
I think it depends on the day and the students within the room, right? Sometimes students feed off of each other. But I would think more often than not, our students are able to process through those situations better and more independently at this point in the year than they would have been at the beginning of the year.
Right.
So they're actually utilizing, more of them are utilizing those strategies independently as opposed to what they were doing in August.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because a couple of weeks ago, a new student was added to the core room.
Several, yeah.
And the dynamic that was in the room for several months quickly changed. And so the deregulation at the beginning of the day, when kids were coming in the morning and it was unstructured time, really became apparent because we had 2 new personalities or 3 new personalities in the room. And they weren't new to the students, right? They knew each other, but they were new to that space, and they were in a self-contained room all day. So that was real good information for Mike and Eric, seeing how that change and who was in the room.
Well, the parents as well, for when the child returns home, to know, what
Exactly.
happened that we might have to have a conversation about.
Right, because that data is sent to parents and students, so it's a great graphic to have too, to say, hey, what happened at noon today? Like, why were you all over the place? Or, I noticed that you're sleeping until 3rd hour because you're blue at the very bottom. How do we adjust that? So it's good for conversation starters with families as well.
Could this have saved that kid's life at Bremen? You had a kid that died on.
Yes.
I didn't understand.
there was a basketball player that died last year during a game
Mhm.
at Bremen. Could,
What is that? I think that's what you're asking.
Thank you.
I don't know, I mean, that was a cardiac event that went from vigorous activity to an emergency situation. I don't know if the heart rate monitor would have helped in that situation at all, to help predict that.
maybe if it was wearing it all the time and he was always in the red, you might
Yeah,
see,
yeah,
some
it had
problem
been
here. but-
prolonged period of time.
So you say this is all, at all four schools?
Yes, sir. Yep,
Thank you, appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you very much for that school presentation. Okay, we are moving on to agenda item 4.3, our FOIA request, Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Mrs. Ressler. Since the last regular board meeting, we have received the following Freedom of Information Act requests. Sherry Reed from Smart Procure requested all purchasing records from 12/9/2022 to current to include purchase order number, purchase date, line item details, including quantity and price, vendor ID number, name, address, and contact information. This request has been completed. Michael Smith requested all audio video from huddle and other security cameras of an altercation at a girls' basketball game on December 13th, 2022 at Tinley Park High School, and any write-ups and or reprimands and any other documents dealing with the situation. This request has been completed. Vince Espy, Local Labs, requested a copy of the district's current mission statement and copies of any previous mission statements, provided they have changed in recent past. This request has been completed. Janie Jordan, Data Research Partners, requested a listing of all Bremen Community High School District 228 employees' first and last names, email addresses, title, position, primary campus, and department location. This request has been completed. And Melinda Creasy, Finishing Chicago, requested bid tabulations, name of awarded general contractor, list of subcontractors performing paint, drywall, glazing, and signage for Bremen District 228's welding shop remodeling. This request has been completed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Skor. Any board member reports?
I just wanted to send out condolences again to, Lisa Wood. I was able to make it by my mom's funeral.
I just want to say that I had the pleasure of attending the Jazz Cafe at Tinley Park last Sunday. I brought my family with me, and it was an amazing event. So congratulations to Mr. A and all the students. And if you love jazz music, you really should, try and attend the event. It really was a spectacular performance. So just want to say congratulations to our students that really enjoyed that event. So, all right. Any other board member reports? All right, moving on to new business, Ms. Morrison.
Item 5.1 is the bills, addendum to bills, payroll, and CDS bills for April 2023. These items are being recommended for full board approval.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Mr. Johnson. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason? Aye. Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Item 5.2 is the fiscal year 2024 operating budget. This item is being recommended for full board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Ms. Stearns. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ressler?
Aye. Item 5.3, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Mrs. Ressler. 5.3 is the MOU for welding with District 228 and District 510. We have not received it as of today, so I'm requesting that we table this till May.
Get a motion to table?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Mr. Johnson. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason? Aye. Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Item 5.4 are the textbook and supplemental materials. As we reviewed last month at Committee of the Whole, they've They've been on display at the Ed Center for the last 30 days and are here this evening for your approval. The superintendent is recommending these items for full board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, second by Ms. Stearns. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye.
Item 5.5 is an overnight field trip request for the Hillcrest football team to go up to Winona State University for camp. This is in June, so there's no loss of school days. Bulk of the cost would be fundraising, paid for by fundraising. The superintendent is recommending this for full board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Mrs. Stearns. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye. Item 5.6, Dr. Boswell.
Board members, every year we make a large purchase of iPads to support our successful iPad one-to-one program. This year, our order with Apple will provide us with 1,500 iPads at a cost of $621,000 and 1,500 keyboard cases at a cost of $195,000. You'll also recall we received the Emergency Connectivity Fund grant for the second time from the FCC in the amount of $441,000 to cover more than half of this cost. Based on the success of our program, I, along with the superintendent, are recommending this purchase for the full board for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Johnson, second by Mr. Whitcomb. Any discussion?
Just like to thank Dr. Boswell again for all the work he puts into not only technology, but also our finances with this.
And the grant writing.
Right.
Amazing grant writer.
Very glad.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye. Item 5.7, Dr. Boswell.
Board members, the desktops and the monitors around the district have been in place for several years and are in need of replacement. We currently have 800 desktops across the district, down from 1,700 7 years ago, and at a replacement cost of $395 per desktop and $105 per monitor, for a total cost of $399,200. I, along with the superintendent, are recommending the purchase of the full board for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Mrs. Stearns. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye. Item 5.8, Dr. Boswell.
Board members, as I mentioned at the committee meeting last week, received a grant from ComEd for $50,000 to purchase an EV vehicle for driver's ed purposes. This money can be used to purchase an electric vehicle, a charging station, and pay for the installation of the charger. While looking at the market, the vehicle that fits our needs and can provide enough range to handle an entire day of driver's ed lessons is a Tesla Model Y. This model was picked because it provides more space for occupants than a sedan. The cost of this vehicle is $52,990 plus fees and the cost of the charging station, for an approximate cost of $54,000. The grant from ComEd is approximately $50,000. The long-term plan is to rotate this vehicle around our district so that all students have the opportunity to take advantage of using and utilizing an electric vehicle. I, along with the superintendent, are recommending this purchase to the full board for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Mr. Johnson. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye. Item 5.9, Mr. Beckbo.
Item 5.9 is the Bremen chiller bid approval. We received 2 bids for the chiller at Bremen High School, one from Temperature Equipment Corporation and one from Johnson Controls. Temperature Equipment came in as the low responsive bid. The chiller came in at $213,000. The 2 circulating pumps, 4-mounted circulating pumps, came in at $12,900, and the chiller secondary pump was $8,200. So Temperature Equipment Corporation is being recommended for
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Stearns, second by Mr. Johnson. Any discussion?
What is this for again? It's the chiller. So, at Bremen, we have a centralized air conditioning system for the majority of the school. It sits on the roof. It's a very large piece of equipment that chills our water that circulates the building.
Oh.
There's been times where, say, something was going on in the gym, and then mathletes were performing, and it was 100 degrees where the athletes were because they needed to cool the gym area. So we won't have that.
All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Gleason, aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye. Item 5.10.
Item 5.10 is the parking lot seal coating and striping approval for Tinley Park High School and Oak Forest High School. So I solicited proposals from McGill Construction Company, who was the company that paved and striped the parking lot here at Hillcrest, to seal coat and stripe the parking lot in Tinley Park and Oak Forest as recommended because of the new lots are supposed to do it within 24 months after the new lots are put in. Because the cost of that they came back on their proposal, while it did fall under the state regulation for procurement for bid purposes, it was over what the board recommends. So I went out and solicited a proposal through one of the purchasing co-owners. And they have a system to where you can go and they have basically list pricing for everything. You go through a certain company and they have a list of companies that they can go through, and they meet all the procurement rules for the state of Illinois. So I got the price back from them, and their price for doing the two lots was over 5 times higher than what. Wow. So while this one at $375,000 meets our bid requirements, these two proposals here would save us almost $300,000. So I'm just recommending that we move forward with the Gill construction proposal as opposed to the one that meets the state of.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Johnson, second by Mrs. Stearns. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye. Moving on to item 6, personnel recommendations. Dr. Goggins.
Under retirement, Matt Pesha. Under leaves, Justin Rivera and Sharon Smith. Under resignation, Timothy Moriarty, Jose Orta, and Charles Thomas. Under employment, Brianna Washington, Brooke Palmer, Natalie Harmoning, Jane Morris, Jacqueline Bergwald, Kelvin Potter, Margaret Simmons, Matt Thrush, and Gabriel Medina. Under change in position, Eugene Reyna. And we're also recommending administrator and non-union support staff pay raises. These are being recommended to the full board for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, second by Mrs. Stearns. Any discussion?
The pay raises for the staff, you said?
Non-union.
Non-union support staff?
We discussed it at committee.
Can we pull that one out?
You want a separate vote on that one?
Can we do that?
Sure. All right, can I get a motion to, so then we're voting to approve items 6.1 through 6.16.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
Discussion on 6.1 through 6.16. Roll call, please.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye. Can I get a motion to approve item 6.17?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Mrs. Stearns. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mr. Johnson?
The same.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye.
Board members, we also are honored to have our new world language and EL supervisor here this evening, so you can meet him prior to walking into closed session. Mr. Gabriel Medina is right there.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to go to closed session to consider information regarding the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, 5 ILCS 120 subsection 2C1?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Mr. Johnson. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?